Hounslow certainly has no shortage of stations. You've got your Hounslow East, your Hounslow Central, your Hounslow West, and your just plain old Hounslow. But there used to be another, and it was here where the bus garage now stands. It was named Hounslow Town. This was a relic of a failed scheme that might have seen the District Line take a very different shape. The branch of the Piccadilly line that runs through here from Acton Town used to be the District Line, and the District Line used to be the District Railway. Back in the 19th century, at least until 1890, there wasn't really a distinction between underground lines and ordinary railways because they were basically the same thing. They were all steam-hauled, they were all fully compatible, and this fact was something the District Line took advantage of. They were a fairly poor railway, having spent a colossal amount of money building their line through central London. Therefore, they adopted a policy of building branch lines out into the suburbs of West London that connected with other railways. This had two financial advantages. They could potentially run trains over those other railways, allowing them to extend their services without the cost of a new line, and they could allow other railways to run over their line and charge them for the privilege. So what does all that have to do with Hounslow? Well, as I mentioned in the opening, Hounslow has underground stations, but also a national rail station. The railway line serving Hounslow was opened in 1850. The station was originally called Witton Park, because there really wasn't much to Hounslow at the time. The railway was built by the London and South Western Railway and ran up to Waterloo via Barnes and down to Reading and Windsor. By the 1880s, though, Hounslow was expanding. So were a lot of suburbs in southwest London, and the District Railway eyed the territory hungrily. The thinking was this: they would extend their line from Acton Town, then known as Mill Hill Park, to Hounslow. In Hounslow, they'd connect to the London and South Western Railway. They intended to open in stages. The first stage would be the station in Hounslow, and the second would be to build a bridge over the High Street and complete the connection. In 1883, Hounslow Town opened. It was an elevated station to make it easier to bridge the High Street. So far, so good. But then they hit a couple of setbacks. The first was the London and South Western Railway. They didn't want district trains on their line, which seems odd at first glance. They let the district use their track to Richmond, for instance. So I'm going to have to explain a little bit about the LSWR and Central London. As I said earlier, the LSWR ran into Waterloo, but they'd always wanted to get across the river and into the city. It was a dream they'd never give up on, and would ultimately achieve when they built the Waterloo and City line in 1898. But in 1883, the district actually did run into the city, so the LSWR didn't want to run the risk of their passengers getting poached. They struck a deal with the district. You let us keep our monopoly around Mortlake and Barnes, and we'll let you use our line from Putney to Wimbledon. And that's why Southfields and Wimbledon Park underground stations have LSWR written into the brickwork. The second setback came from a rather unexpected source: the District Railway themselves. In 1884, they built another line to Hounslow Barracks, now Hounslow West. Now passengers who wanted to get to Hounslow had a choice of stations, so Hounslow Town lost many of its passengers. In 1886, just 3 years after opening, Hounslow Town closed. It was replaced with a new station, then named Heston and Hounslow. The station remained disused for the next 17 years. Apparently it wound up as a house with chickens roaming the platforms. But in 1903 something odd happened. Hounslow Town and the branch leading to it were reopened. I assume the chickens were evicted. In 1905 the railway was electrified and the line between Osterley and Spring Grove and Heston and Hounslow was closed, and a new line was built from Hounslow Town to Heston and Hounslow. So now, if you wanted to go from central London to Hounslow Barracks, your train would take you to Hounslow Town and reverse out for the rest of the route. It was a strange state of affairs. The tight curves on the line from town to barracks additionally meant that trains couldn't travel much faster than walking pace, making things even less convenient. In 1909, someone said, "Look, this is just ridiculous." The closed line was reopened, and the reopened line was closed. So too was Hounslow Town. A new Hounslow Town station was opened on the Barracks branch. By the looks of things, the branch would have come off about here on this high area of ground next to the Underground line. I suspect this building here is an electrical substation. It looks a little large for a water tower on a branch line. A few years later, the London General Omnibus Company was looking for a site for a bus garage in Hounslow. As it happened, the London General Omnibus Company and the District Railway were both owned by Underground Electric Railways of London. So in 1912 the station was demolished and replaced with the bus garage that still occupies the site. In 1925, likely for the sake of convenience, the stations were renamed from Hounslow Town, Heston and Hounslow and Hounslow Barracks to Hounslow East, Hounslow Central and Hounslow West. That same year, the Piccadilly line took the branch over as part of a measure to reduce congestion on the District line. And that's more or less where we are today. Nobody is calling for the reopening of the old station or the completion of the District Railway's link. Still, I can't help but wonder what might have been. These days, the old LSWR loop is a relatively quiet line. Maybe there's some parallel universe where it's now part of the Underground and you can get the Piccadilly line to Barnes and Twickenham. Who knows, man? Who knows? Good evening, I hope you enjoyed this disconnected tale from the tube. If so, there's a like button that you can connect with, and you can subscribe for more content like this. Thanks as ever to my donors on Ko-fi and Patreon. You are the chickens to my abandoned platform. And I'll see you all again very soon. Cheerio.